I was going to talk about the acting in general, right?
Okay.
I didn't like a lot of the acting. I thought it was quite bad, and I thought the script was very bad. But let's take it individually a minute, right? Because one of the things that took me out the most, the singer of the Pretenders, right? Chrissie
Yes,
Hynde,
Chrissie
right?
Hynde. Yes, yeah.
It took me a few episodes in to realise who that was, because that girl playing the part looks nothing like Chrissie Hynde.
You know what she reminded me of? This is showing my age, but that Beverly Hills 90210, the sister.
Oh, Shannon Doherty.
Yeah, she looked just like a young. I was like, did they clone her or something?
Do you know who I thought it was? I actually genuinely thought it was, and I had to Google it because I thought it was her. The Joy robot out of Blade Runner 2049. The one out of Knives Out.
Yes, yeah, she's beautiful. But I know who you're talking about.
Oh, gorgeous girl.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought, right, so I thought she was all right. I thought, in terms of acting, I thought she was maybe the best thing in it.
Sure.
But the idea that she was Chrissie Hynde out of the Pretenders completely over my head.
Yeah.
And a lot of
send her back to the Chain Gang.
A lot. Yeah. Right. Yes. I only know 2 Pretender songs. I think that's
I actually
one of them.
went through and like
that's
one
of them.
This, I was doing notes and I was like listening to her her playlist, the Pretenders playlist. And what I thought was kind of funny was she's like, I'm gonna sleep with this guy from the Sex Pistols and then become an adult contemporary icon. A couple funny things. Rush Limbaugh, who's a super conservative guy that passed
say that
away
name again?
recently. Rush Limbaugh.
There's a guy called Rush Limbaugh.
Yep, and he was huge. He started sort
Was
of
he a punk
Fox
rocker?
News. No, he was a conservative Republican guy, and I'm making no comments on politics, but he started Fox News and everything. Sort of, you could argue grew up from him. Oh, stop it! But one of her songs he played for his theme song throughout the whole thing. And then another thing with her is that song "I'll Stand by You."
Yeah, that's
I
right.
always will remember her when I was like a young lad. My mom sent me one summer to do like a vocational tech sort of school little thing they had over the summer, and it was the Summer of Adult Contemporary. That Wilson Phillips song that was terrible. That terrible Wilson Phillips song was like huge, and then "I'll Stand by You" was like every other song, and I couldn't stand it. And then when I put the pieces together, I was like, oh God.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'll stand by you.
I'll stand by you.
And
Don't
there's a
let
Christmas
nobody
song.
hurt you.
Christmas song.
I don't know the Christmas one.
She's got a Christmas song that I have to listen to and endure every single year.
Ugh.
I'm not a Pretenders fan particularly. Don't like Chrissie Hynde. She's on Friends as well. She sung with
is she?
Phoebe. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Well, it looks like if you look at her biography,
She did Smelly Cat.
She just
She did
kicks
Smelly Cat.
she just kicks everybody out of the band like every few years.
Oh, really?
It's just her. She's one of those bands.
Which is one of the bands where, there's loads of bands like that, isn't there? Where really it's just one person and they just keep. So.
But I agree with you. And even with what
She was
little
the best
knowledge
thing in
I
it,
had,
maybe.
yeah, she was a great actress, but yeah, too pretty. And no offense to actually Chrissie Hynde, but or what her name, whatever
She's
her name
just,
is.
it just pulled me out. Johnny
Chrissie
Rotten,
Hynde.
I've got next. Johnny Rotten, right? So that's an interesting casting decision, right?
Yeah.
I thought the way he played him was interesting.
Because didn't you feel that John Lyndon is much more charismatic? And he sort of had it when he was singing, like when he was on stage in the show, where he would have that charisma.
I've got no idea what John Lyndon was doing.
Oh,
John
Lydon. All right, I'm saying Johnny Rotten. I don't care. Johnny Rotten.
Johnny Rotten. Call him Johnny Rotten.
Johnny Rotten. So when Johnny Rotten was on stage in the show, I felt like the charisma came across. But if you watch interviews with Johnny Rotten, John Lydon now, he's very charismatic, very, and he can be confrontational, but it's more, it seems more witty than in the show. It seemed more just like cut you off and I hate your guts.
He's an interesting character as John Lydon. He ain't half putting a lot of that on. And I think he's actually quite a clever, nice bloke.
I think so too.
Yeah. And I don't, right. So in this program, I laughed at first with that whole "I'm 18" bit at the beginning when he's singing the Alice Cooper song and he's acting so weirdly. By the end, I thought he may just be one of the best things about it. I quite like that actor as Johnny Rotten.
Yeah, he grew
and
on
by
me.
the end, I think he actually won, and he looking down the list, he may be the best thing in it.
I can see. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Maybe the best thing in it.
I'd agree with that.
Whoever that is,
And
congratulations.
well, and it's based off the book by Steve Jones, and unfortunately,
Yeah, and you can
Steve
tell.
Jones is not the most interesting by a long shot.
We should have said that at the beginning. This whole series is based on the autobiography, the story by Steve Jones, the guitar player, who does not get on with Johnny Rotten, and Johnny Rotten does not get on with him. Yeah. So we'll get onto this.
The book was called My Life After the Monkees.
Bloody hell. But you can tell, and Johnny Rotten, we'll talk about it in a minute. Johnny Rotten wanted nothing to do with this.
Well, and Johnny lied. Yeah, I saw an interview.
Steve Jones's story,
and he was angry that they didn't even talk to him before they made this.
This is not good from his point of view. But I thought he was probably the best thing in it. Malcolm McLaren, very interesting character in real life. He was one of those. Well, do you know what? There's another. I can see so many correlations between this story and Elvis, because Malcolm McLaren and Colonel Tom Parker.
He was brothers with Colonel Sanders from Kentucky
Colonel
Fried Chicken.
Sanders,
It's a fun fact.
Did you, like me, right? Did you watch that and think, why did they get a little kid to play the part of Malcolm McLaren, like a little boy in short pants?
I thought Peter Pan. He just flew in with the elf ears. And
do you know who that was?
No, actually.
Because I've got a question. How old do you think that actor is?
16. No, 27.
32.
Well, I wasn't that far off.
32. He was the little kid out of Love Actually.
One of his big scenes they do
at
the reenactment of Steve Jones is in trouble at court, and he comes as a witness. And the thing is, the way they played the scene, I didn't believe it for a second. It made no sense. Like anyone, it was like an episode of Full House. Like it was just so ridiculous. Like oh, I'm his mentor, and if you let him out, like I just thought the crowd was going to start doing canned laughter. It was really bad.
It was. I can only assume, right, that happened in real life.
But if it did, I think it probably went down a little bit more realistically.
Exactly. I think I've never read.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just said real life probably happened more realistically.
Real life. Yeah, Bill. Well done.
I like my additions are worthy and innumerable. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. In my experience, I find real life to be more realistic than fiction.
I think Steve Jones wrote a book in which he exaggerated his life, right?
Yeah.
And this is a program based on his exaggerations. So probably the reason why the likes of Johnny Rotten are against it is that they probably remember it a lot differently. And I'm sure that maybe
Steve Jones is like, hey, remember that time where I banged every chick?
Yeah, right. And I've got that down, right?
Sure.
So on the next thing, when we're going to talk about the first episode, right?
Yeah.
I've written down one thing, which is,
I screw a lot of birds.
And if this is the version of himself he wants to be portrayed on the screen, what a dickhead.
Speaking of realism, that part where he achieved enlightenment behind that car when the couple were having sex, and then he closed his eyes and he fell backwards. Now, I might be doing it wrong. I don't know. But has it ever been so good for you that you closed your eyes and fell backwards on the pavement?
Did you like Malcolm McLaren's acting person, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, I'm going to say yes as well. My first reaction was, you got to be kidding me. A schoolboy in short pants. Actually, by the end, I thought, no, you're right, mate. He was in the Queen's Gambit on Netflix. He was a chess player. And he was in Game of Thrones as well. Oh, Game of Thrones. We've got to mention something from Game of Thrones.
He was the brother. Oh, yeah. Arya showing the goods.
Let's just do it now. In fact, before we go on to Sid and Nancy, let's just talk about the fact that Arya is in it wearing nothing but a see-through rain mac.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, what else does she do in the show? Like, her role seems to be, she's topless, and then every once in a while they cut to her, and she's like,
do you know she's based on the real person from that era?
Because I watched the real interview they did when they cursed live on, they were all drunk with that.
The Bill Grundy show.
Yeah.
So, and to be fair, I don't really know the whole story of that. I think she's called Jordan or something like that. I don't know the whole story about that girl, but she didn't really do much more than wear nothing. under a Mac.
Yeah.
So, Sid Vicious. Sidney Vicious, the actor who played Sid Vicious and the whole role of Sid Vicious. What did you think?
I don't know. I actually watched and listened to a couple documentaries about him and Nancy, and so I knew about that coming in, and I didn't have any issues. Like I was like, "Ugh." And it's hard to say from someone that doesn't know these people,
Oh,
but-
in that case, that's not.
Yeah, but it
dwell on
seemed
too
it seemed
much.
reasonable. Like it seemed like he was probably like this. This makes sense. And it's funny, like as much as you like the Sex Pistols, you're like, oh, it'd be terrible to spend any amount of time with any of these people. Oh my god.
I'm not sure about Paul Cook. I'm not sure about the drummer. The drummer always seemed fine.
Oh yeah,
fine.
and the one
Paul
with the
Cook.
supportive family and the original bass player. And
Glenn Matlock, Paul Cook.
as someone who also likes the Beatles, I had a soft spot for him.
Yeah, I think Johnny Rotten liked the Beatles as well.
Yeah.
Johnny Rotten wore an "I Hate Pink Floyd." He just wrote "I Hate"
Yeah.
on a Pink
They
Floyd
played
t-shirt.
the Pink Floyd. Yeah.
But he later admitted that he quite liked Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's full of Paul Cook. Out of interest, what a drummer, right?
And the drums are solid on that album. And it's funny because all of the singing is sort of the same. There's not a lot of dynamic shift. And I actually looked it up, and the BPM, and going through their album, 152. Then you got Bodies, which drops down to 78. But then 161,
Are you
149,
judging an album
152,
on BPM?
152. No, I'm saying it's interesting how he made it interesting.
Oh, I
when
see.
they're-
You're complimenting
Yes.
the lack of variety in BPM.
Well, I'm giving him credit that he took songs that didn't have a lot of variety and dynamic changes, and yet
Yeah.
he managed to make them sound very interesting and keep you engaged. is what
I
I'm
quite
saying.
like that bit. It's a bit in the document in the program that you probably didn't like because it was so contrived. But I thought it was interesting. There's a bit where they're writing their first song, right? It's Anarchy in the UK.
Yeah, that's the bit I hate. I know exactly. what you're talking about.
right.
You're
And
playing it
they're-
too fast.
They're playing it really fast, right? Like
Yeah.
you might if you come up with what you think is like a fast, thrashy song, and then Paul Cook comes in and says, "You want to play it more like reggae?" And he starts to
Yeah.
play, and then within a couple of minutes, well, probably within 30 seconds, they've got Anarchy in the UK as it finally is.
Yeah. Which
Now,
definitely
I-
did not happen. Because they
Definitely did
also
not
did
happen.
it where the drummer was leaving the band that instant and he just happened to walk in on
I
their
just-
most famous song. being,
Exactly. But what I did like with that was the fact that it's that input that someone can have where they can be stepped back from the whole thing and people can be struggling with something and someone else just comes along and says, what that could be good what you're doing, but
If
what
he
the
made a-
hell are you
if he
doing
made-
like that for?
If he made a movie about Albert Einstein, Einstein would be sitting there going, I can't solve this problem. And then his niece would run in and go, Uncle Albert, don't be such a square. And he'd go, Square?
Square!
E equals
Yes!
MC squared. Oh!
I had E equals MC
And
for
then-
the last 6 years. E equals MC.
And then they would fade, and he'd be like in a big hall going, and then you square it. And everyone go, oh, bravo.
Brilliant.
But no, and I do think that part is true in how much a song can change when someone has a small idea that they get the spirit of what you're doing and they can change something like BPM or maybe change from like E to B and the whole song changes just from something that they would have never thought to do themselves. So I thought the idea was interesting, but the way they did it, yeah, my eyes were rolling from here till the South
It-
Sea.
Was contrived, but I can see why someone would do that for the mainstream on Disney or in these other films like The Doors. If someone wants to present the idea of being in a band to the wider public, you can get away with the idea that someone can learn a guitar in 4 days and play and the song can be written in 30 seconds. Because do you know what? Whereas we pick up on that and say, I'm literally looking at the screen going, you've got to be kidding me. I
What
don't
was
think
the
everyone
first
would.
song? What
I
was
don't think
the
everyone
first
would.
song you tried to learn on guitar when you first started playing?
I was probably playing when the Saints go marching in and the House of the Rising Sun.
Mine was I had a cruise guitar, which I actually have around here somewhere, and it was smaller than a normal guitar. It was literally a learning guitar, and I tried to get tablature and learned the Call of Cthulhu and Fade to Black from
Bloody
Metallica,
hell.
and I was going, how do these people do like even the rhythm? And it took me a full year, and I still couldn't play well. And I had a couple friends that were amazing at guitar, and I played bass for them, and I had to get good just to hang. And then I went back to guitar, and it made sense. So like a week. Now, can you play like standard power chords roughly in time? I would still say no. I mean, go listen to someone
Well-
trying guitar. You got to get calluses on your hands just to,
So you're right. So you're skipping ahead, right? To
I'm sorry.
no, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We might as well skip ahead to it now. So Steve Jones in this program learns the guitar in 4 days, right? He's given a guitar, and he's given some pills to keep him awake, and he
They give
can't
him learn
play.
guitar drugs.
Yeah, he learned guitar drugs. He can't play
The
anything.
doctor will give them to you. Yeah.
The doctor gives him play guitar drugs. 4 days later, the rest of the band walks in, and he plays Stooges riffs. But so Danny Boyle does a thing here, right? Where, and I've written this down, learning the guitar in 4 days, and I draw a smiley face, but he does a juxtaposition with Elvis, right? And so you've got an Elvis song playing, and it gets to the crescendo, and there's like a fairy tale, and there's a beautiful vibe of fairy tale, and he picks the guitar up, and he stands there like that, and then he goes to play it, and you think, oh my God, give me a break, and then he strums it, and then the caption's on the screen, because I've got the subtitles on to say, strums guitar out of tune. And he just goes, bloom, and I thought, okay, you've given a nod to Bill and I on that bit. You still allow him to learn the guitar in 4 days, but you give just a nod to us to say,
Because my thought,
Yeah,
after
this is
watching
nonsense.
that scene, when he plays the riff and all the bandmates are like, oh my God, I thought to myself, if I sent that to you, you would politely tell me, that's really good, mate, and then I'd never hear about it again.
yeah. But it kind of fit the vibe, because I could see why, because it's Glenn Matlock's leaving the band at that point.
Yeah,
And he's
yeah.
walking out the door. He's saying, I've had enough of this. You can't play. And then he goes, Dan and Dan and Dan and Dan and Dan and Dan. He turns round at this shit out of tune riff. And he turns around and
Yeah.
he walks back in and goes, did you just play that? And I thought, yeah, see, right, he did. It was shit. but
Oh, man.
you can hear, right? You can, the way they play it live like that, there's a vibe there. You can think, actually,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. You put some drums and bass with that.
Yeah.
That's all right. Nancy Spungen.
There was a part where she comes in, and of course she's addicted to heroin, and she goes to stay at Chrissy Hines' apartment, and she, of course, diarrhea's all over the bathroom because she's a heroin addict,
Yes.
And
That's
then
always nice.
they do this thing where she's laying on the bed, and they're kind of like, they light her. She's all innocent looking, and she reads the note that Sid Vicious wrote, which is real romantic. Why I like you, because you're hot, and like you give me an erection is number
Yes.
2. And they're acting like it's very sweet. And so she says to Chris, she goes,
Thank you. You are the first person to ever be nice to me.
and I know that the show wants me, and maybe if I was younger, I think if I was younger, I'd go, oh, I see that this girl has hidden depths, and it's sad, and, But what I actually,
Yeah.
they say when you're old, they go, get off my lawn. I
Yeah.
thought, because now at my age, if someone like that came to my house, the first thing I would do is I would get the hose, and I would turn it on, and I would spray them with the hose until
Yeah.
they left. Until
Yeah.
they left, and
Yeah.
because it's just, and not to sort of, she did have a very tough childhood if you find out about her, and a tough life, and so did Sid Vicious. But you learn that those people just being around, they just destroy everything around them, and they don't care. And it's not that it isn't sad, it is, but you learn that it would just keep them as far away. And what did she do? She killed the band, separated them, and he was accused of her murder. And from what I've learned of documentaries, it sounds like it was a local drug dealer with a really cool name that did it. What was it? It was like World Be Free or something crazy. I gotta Google that, what his name was.
Well, Google it, but that's
yeah.
that's a point for later.
Of course it is.
That's a story best left for the caravan. Sid and Nancy, I thought they were right acting wise. Cloak, the cloak of invincibility. That was episode 1, right? We don't have to spend too long. What did I write for episode 1? I just wrote this is sort of introducing us to Steve Jones primarily and Malcolm McLaren.
Yes.
And it's his I screw a lot of birds.
Rocket's Red Glare. That was the name of the drug dealer that supposedly actually killed Nancy Spungen.
I haven't heard that story. What is someone suggesting that there was someone else involved in that.
Yeah,
don't know,
the
I know.
idea is that Sid either left or I think he left to get drugs or he passed out, and then the drug dealer. I think he had left, and the drug dealer is the one that ended up killing her and then leaving and letting Sid take the blame because I think he was passed out. He was so like.
Oh, isn't it more likely that Sid just stabbed her in some nonsense?
I don't know any of these people, so I don't know what's more. I just know that Rocket's Red Glare. I'm gonna call myself that from now on.
Well,
Rocket's Red Glare.
if you can get away with it, I mean, yeah, you've got an interesting life ahead of you when your name's Rocket.
That's red glare to you, sir.
I screw a lot of birds. I think the cloak of invisibility keeps reoccurring throughout. It's the idea that Steve Jones portrays in his book, I suppose.
It's something that you can
he
see
just
him
feels
thinking
invisible
of.
to the world. He feels
It's
invisible
something
to the
that
world.
you can see of as interesting as a literary device, but in the show they keep bringing it out, and you get it's supposed to be meaningful. It's when you ever watch something and you go, I get that's supposed to hit me, and it just doesn't.
It's a weird one because I think he's quite a dislikable character, even though he's supposed to be the main character. Which is, you could have a dislikable character. I didn't like Walt White from episode 1.
But he was charismatic, and I don't think Steve Jones was very charismatic.
I think what they were trying to get at then throughout was the fact that he's an abuse victim, and lots of the things that he could do and couldn't do were all influenced by it. It was so on the nose of this, right? It was so on the nose. So many points from now on throughout everything we're going to say. I'm going to keep going. It was so on the nose, especially 2 episodes time. Bodies. Don't get me started on that.
Yeah.
Have you got anything in particular you want to say about Mr. Steve Jones? Because that's what this episode seems to all be about.
If we weren't doing a podcast about it, I probably would have bowed out at this point of the show, because I didn't find him interesting. The cinematography, like I said, there was a ton of classic rock, and it was almost like too much. And I'll go back to Scorsese, who uses songs in movies, but there's a balance. When you use it and it's right, it works amazingly well.
This is a music related program.
Yes, but I feel like he was just throwing stuff at the wall. This first, I would be curious to look at the credits of how many songs they licensed.
Well,
for
I'm
episode
assuming
1.
that I haven't read the book, but I'm assuming that it must be true that Steve Jones was stealing David Bowie's equipment from like the Hammersmith Odeon or whatever.
Oh, that was the first thing. And did he clip the XLR to get it? Was that a lock when he stole the?
I don't know why.
I couldn't tell what he. I was like, why do you have to clip something to grab a? And why are you leaving the mic? I've worked in live sound, and we don't tend to just leave the mic up on the stand.
I didn't mind any of that, and then because they then had to use the David Bowie thing, and then I quite liked the relationship between Steve Jones and Chrissie Hynde. I didn't believe it, but I liked it. The fact that they were using the Bowie song to.
I think they should do one more. I think they should do one more innuendo about singing the Bowie song. I don't think that was hammered home enough.
It was on the nose. It was on the nose. I didn't mind it, but it was on the nose.
But we can move on. Yeah, we can.
We can move on. We can move on. I'm not sure. The second episode, right? So this is where they had the Johnny Rotten audition bit where Johnny says that he did walk down the street. He had this Malcolm McLaren bit. He was wearing the I Hate Pink Floyd t-shirt, and he did sing Alice Cooper's I'm 18.
Yeah.
And I think I've seen Alice Cooper like 6 times now. I only saw him last month, was it? At the O2? Yeah. He is just I like the fact that one of my favorite ever bands, the singer of the band got the job by singing another one of my favorite ever bands song.
That's
I
cool.
quite like that.
Yeah.
And I quite like the fact that Love It to Death, the album that song's on, is quite punk from 1971. It's like there was punk before punk.
Well, sure.
Do you know what I mean? Everyone thinks it was like invented, but I think it was the spirit of punk.
Yeah. I was going to say
it was
the
a
same
spirit.
thing.
And then, so this is the episode. So we've already talked about it, so we don't need to do it. But yeah, the idea, you've touched upon it, the idea that you could ever learn a guitar in 4 days.
Yeah.
It's a joke. I spent so long trying to learn the guitar when I was a teenager, and I wasn't any good at the guitar for the first couple of years, really.
And it takes that long to really feel comfortable.
It's a really hard instrument, and what you'll find is that the people who think a guitar is easy are only the people that ever stuck with it. Most people get a guitar, like a surfboard or any other hobby. Everyone's got a guitar that they want.
You realize it's hard, and then you stop.
they'll play it a couple of days. Maybe they'll play it for 4 days and think, sod this. It'd be interesting to know what the real story is with Steve Jones. I mean, I'm assuming that this is a heightened reality, but I can only guess that Steve Jones really did learn the guitar quickly, power chords or whatever.
Well, and I think that's the trick is,
out.
yeah, when you're bashing out power chords, you can sort of get away. And if the drummer's keeping up the rhythm, because a big thing with guitar that you don't get is there's the technical playing the notes, and then there's feel. And feel takes a long time where you're not just going and then awkwardly hitting it. And so, but I think if you're going to join any band doing it, the Sex Pistols is probably the band to do it.
If you listen to the Sex Pistols music, right, Steve Jones's guitar playing is absolutely incredible. Yeah. It's fantastic. What a musician. Overdubs of guitars, which they make a joke about in this documentary.
Where he's playing bass too, yeah.
But the sheer number of overdubs, some of the little solos he plays, the intricacy, the timing of the rhythm. Steve Jones is a hell of a player. I just don't buy this whole way he's portrayed in this. Glenn Matlock was a decent bass player, great songwriter.
Yeah.
By the time they recorded their only album,
good too. Yeah.
Paul Cook was great. Do you know what?
Yeah.
They kind of, I think they portrayed them well enough that by the end, even non-fans would think, oh, do you know what? They're all right. But they did him a bit of a disservice because Johnny Rotten was a fantastic singer. I don't quite like the way he's portrayed in this, in that they're kind of making out that it was just all about show. And if you listen to his singing, he's one of the greats, because you hear 1 second of Johnny Rotten singing
and you can tell it's him. Well, I think he also proves, though, that how much of just life in general, not just being a singer of a band, is about having the utmost commitment and confidence in what you're doing. And like him even slagging himself off, but just the way he sings, I'm going to, like, there's no self-doubt there. And I think that's what attracts people to listen to it, because you hear it and you're like, this guy, I don't know if I agree with him, but this guy believes it. And I think he just really, and that charisma, he's smart. And I think British bands tend to have more, I don't want to say more, but a lot of them really give a shit about the lyrics. And I think he's obviously one that it's what you can tell that it's really important to him what he's saying. Where so many bands are like, it's just, I hum the melody and it worked out, what rhymes with park, and let's go. And you don't get it's like almost Bob Dylan, and not that he's Bob Dylan, but I just mean in the essence of the song's about what I'm saying. That's what the song's about, not the melody, not the hook as much. In his mind.
I agree with that. I mean, I'm not sure whether Bob Dylan would ever rhyme Antichrist with anarchist, and the way that Johnny Rotten does it in the song is, I've always thought, is very interesting, because I would definitely not do what he does. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with, I am an antichrist and I am an anarchist. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. There's nothing. He never had to go
might destroy, possibly. And it's like, I think, but I think
don't sing Dave Mustaine lyrics. Don't sing Dave Mustaine's misheard lyrics. That's what you were just doing then.
Sorry.
That's what you were just doing then. Passes by.
But I think to him,
council tendencies.
Oh, really?
Not like tendencies. Have you listened to it?
I think that's going to require a beep in the.
I will beep it. Dave Mustaine, right? Another like tendencies. And when he was asked about it, why the hell did you say that? He went, oh, isn't that what he says? And they're like, no, he says council tendencies, council in the UK. A complete, I mean, the thing is, right? The Sex Pistols are one of the only bands that I ever covered live. When I was playing in bands, when I was in the punk bands, I've done very, very few covers my entire life, but I would always play Pretty Vacant and I'm Not Your Stepping Stone, the Sex Pistols version. And back then there was no internet, so I couldn't find the lyrics, and I misheard Sex Pistols lyrics, and I myself have missung Sex Pistols lyrics live. So what I'm trying to say there is,
you're like, he said I'm just stalling. He said I'm just stalling, and I sang I love Stalin.
yeah, exactly.
The album's called Never Mind the Bullocks. I always thought bullocks meant like bullshit, bollocks. I don't know. I always thought it meant like bullshit. And then I Urban Dictionary and it says balls. So the album is Never Mind My Balls, which ironically is what I say when I'm walking past someone on an airplane. I say, never mind my balls.
You're supposed to wear pants on an airplane.
Sorry, never mind my balls. I'm just going past. I'm polite about it. I say, never mind my balls. I'm passing by. It's the moment's
Whoa,
over.
never mind the bollocks.
Is that what the album is? Never mind my balls.
Never mind. Yeah, it's just one of those great British words. And that's another point in the series actually, where they're going, what should we call the album? And someone's going, oh, I don't know, let's call it Dented Tin Can. And someone else says, oh, let's call it the Red Ribbon Bell Worshippers. And then someone goes, I got a brilliant idea here, because I wrote the book and this series is based on my words. I reckon we'll call it, I can imagine Johnny Rotten just going, you didn't say that. Let's just call it Never Mind the Bollocks, Here's a Sex Pistols. Everyone's, yes, that's it. Like, as if there wouldn't have been an argument. What? You want to call it what?
Yeah, exactly. Like they just went, that's
Hang
it.
on, explain that one. You want to call it what? They go to record Never Mind the Bollocks, Here's a Sex Pistols. And they've, at that point in time, they've got a bass player who can't play a single note because he's all about the looks. And he had the second best, look, maybe the first best looking punk of all time. So basically Steve Jones played all the bass lines as well, and really accomplished musician, which does not come across in, they really
in the
downplay it. Really
He
downplay
did say
it.
that line. He said that line, but they don't really act like he can play.
Yeah, I think so. Right, let's just do a few lyrics for this particular episode. This is episode 3, right? And it goes a bit like this. It goes, she was a girl from Birmingham. She just had an abortion. She was a case of insanity. Her name was Pauline. She lived in a tree. She was a no one who killed her baby. She sent us letters from the country. She was an animal. She was a bloody disgrace. Now, that has always been a very borderline edgy song. I would say when it comes to bodies, the Sex Pistols were, everything they wore and everything they said and everything they did was to cause annoyance, a nuisance, and to sort of kind of attack the establishment. So yes, the Sex Pistols would have a very on the nose song about, I mean, listen to the lyrics.
And here's what's interesting about how they, and I kind of got into it a little bit, how they cover it in the show. And what I was going to kind of say is it's a very, very serious topic with a woman who is sexually abused in a mental asylum and is having abortions and carrying them around because clearly she's disturbed. And either Steve Jones went, hey, you know that girl had the abortion sexually, I banged her. Let's put that in the book. Or the director said, you know what? Let's take this poor woman and have a really awkward sex scene in a car when she's carrying a dead baby. And I'm joking because it just is ridiculous to me.
Do you believe it? I don't believe it.
No.
I don't think that happened. I
don't either.
I think there's elements. I think what I've read from Johnny Rotten, and I'm going back years now. I haven't read anything. I haven't researched it for this, but I remember Johnny Rotten said, because he wrote, she was a girl from Birmingham. Well, Birmingham's it's where Black Sabbath and Judas Priest come from, 200 miles that way. And she had the Birmingham accent, so they're trying to put it all in. She was a girl from Birmingham. She just had an abortion. She was a case of insanity. Her name was Pauline. She lived in a tree. Apparently, she was in a tree when they were talking to her.
Treehouse or something. Yeah.
Treehouse. And apparently, John Lydon says that she once carried a fetus in a bag. I don't know whether I believe any of it, really. And I think it's an odd, I don't know why Danny Boyle chose that song to pin a whole episode on, because I think that episode was really weird. It went into a kind of serial killer, kind of like those edgy.
They literally did the 7,
Netflix.
What's in the box? They did a 7, What's in the box?
Odd.
When she was in the sex shop and she opened up her bag and they're like, get out.
I didn't like it. I didn't buy it.
I didn't like it. I didn't, by
She
it,
was
and
all
I think-
right. The actress, everything was all.
No, she was fine.
Done badly. I just
She
didn't
was
like
fine.
it.
But the way they portrayed her and the way they acted towards her just didn't make any sense.
The sex scene in the car immediately before he's
yeah.
marrying that gorgeous girl out of Blade Runner.
Yeah. And I didn't know the backstory watching that episode. So they're starting up with it. I'm just going, what is this? Like, what does
I
this
mean,
have to do with
if
it?
I'm being positive, I could say that they didn't shy away from stuff.
Yeah.
I think Danny Boyle was making too much effort to defend the indefensible. So the Sex Pistols, because of Malcolm McLaren and Vivienne Westwood, and there was a whole wave in the 70s, which is hard to imagine now, but they were wearing swastikas, they were wearing Nazi regalia to annoy people. It's almost like Danny Boyle knows he's going to do a Sex Pistols program for Disney, and his immediate thought is, this is a band that wore swastikas on stage and sung about abortion. I'm going to justify it. So I'm going to show some children making swastikas and painting them pink, and I'm going to, on the nose, say to camera,
Why this
well,
is what it is.
it's a pink swastika, you see. So we're showing a juxtaposition between the atrocities of war and, you know, and I thought when Vivienne Westwood was saying that with the children, I was shouting at the screen, bollocks.
Yeah.
And then when they spent the whole episode justifying the lyrics of a song that may or may not be true and who cares, I
Yeah.
thought, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? I didn't hate it. I thought there was good bits in it, that episode. But
I think what good came out
on the
of
nose.
it is if
I've
you're
just written
looking
on
at
the
it,
nose.
if you're looking at it from a storytelling perspective, that this is the story of the band. I think it helped with John Lydon because he was very at the point he was just kind of angry at everyone, cynical to everyone, didn't really show any heart except for when they'd make fun of him. They'd kind of show him like, ooh, like a little bit. And I think he took her in and showed empathy towards her, and I think that humanized him as a character. So to me, I think that was the important thing. Not that her issues weren't important, but I don't know if her issues and the issue of abortion and everything, I don't know if this was the time or place. I don't know. I felt like you either give the whole series to that story. I don't feel like that's something you cram in 15 minutes here and there to tell. But, you know, it's a difficult thing. And when you take on things that are controversial, it's very difficult to do right. So I'm not saying making a comment on, you know, but yeah, it just felt weird to me. It just didn't, you know, I don't know.
It felt
I didn't
like
care for it.
you're making a series about Sex Pistols, right? This is a
Yeah.
band that only released one album, right? So I think he's got the track listing in front of him, and he knows he has to include, you know, Anarchy in the UK, Pretty Vacant, God Save the Queen. There's certain songs he has to include. There's a very short body of work, and he's basing a series around it. You've got this glaring song that's on there still. It's just there. I actually quite like the song. It's really, I think it's the heaviest. It's a really good. I'm not saying I don't like the song. I've read through the lyrics because I used to sing it all the time. It's a great line. It's "F this and f that, f all the f that she want to be." And it's like I've never heard something when I was a kid. I'd never heard somebody in one verse. It was a really, you can tell it's a band that's just trying to piss you off.
Yeah.
But I read through the lyrics again just to see whether it's got any particular stance and whether it is a dodgy song in today's like
I read up on it too.
age.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it is particularly. It seems.
I think what he was trying
it
to
seems
capture,
okay. It seems. I don't know.
and from what I've read from what he said and reading the lyrics, I think it's trying to capture both pro and negative sides. So there's the pro side of obviously why she'd want to do this, but then he doesn't shy away from the brutality of it and what's being done and what her reaction. And from what I can understand, he was just trying to capture the whole thing and as glaringly truthful, staring it right in the face as he possibly could, because he knew that wouldn't go over well. And it wasn't as much about having an opinion one way or the other. It was about showing everything just right in your face, because so many people sort of try to wrap it up and you know and do it in a more aesthetically pleasing way on both sides.
Yeah, you know, for 1977 or whatever, I'm not sure it's a topic that's
Well, I mean, clearly, and I don't want
covered
to.
that much.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go into like what we feel politically and everything, but I think we can see now with what's going on in the U.S., people still aren't comfortable talking about it and sitting down and having conversation, and I get it. But I think in some respects, punk rock, some comedians, and hip hop, I think it's important in society to have people that say where are the lines, and then they test the lines a little further. And unfortunately, whenever you do that, you always are running the risk of then going too far.
Yeah.
And so it's a very tricky thing whenever you're going to discuss any of these topics. So I'm never going to sort of, unless it's like very in your face, they're just trying to be, insult people. But, so I respect the attempt, I'll say.
They've chosen to do bodies, right? Which is, I think I've got more problem with the episode based on it than I do with the
Yeah.
actual song.
I agree.
Funny enough.
Well, and like I said, having a sex scene with her just seemed, and I don't want to say inappropriate. Like I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, you should get in trouble or something. I'm just saying it just seemed inappropriate. Like I'm like, what? Like I just when I was watching it,
Yeah,
maybe
maybe it happened because if you, I had a quick little read about the series just to see because I knew it was based on Steve Jones's book, and I saw
Yeah.
that he had input throughout. It was like he was like the creative person on it.
The way they edited it together, I didn't know this story. I thought she literally escaped from a mental asylum and showed up there. You know what I mean? Like,
It's weird, isn't it?
does she have a job?
She
Is
sent us letters from the country, so she must have been like a groupie, no, a fan.
Yeah,
a fan
so
that was
maybe
sending
in real
letters.
maybe in real life, after that experience, she has a 9-to-5 job, and I don't know. But the way they portrayed it in the show is
Yeah,
just very,
very odd, very on the nose,
Yeah.
very on the nose.